What's going on, everybody? Today's video is going to be a bit of a personal video that I have been thinking about for quite some time. Ever since when I started my channel, when I first started making videos back in 2016, I didn't really have this thought of doing this video until after I graduated high school back in 2018, and I was thinking about doing this video sometime around 2019 or even last year. But I feel like since I'm 21 for about 4 months now, I think it kind of seems appropriate for me to talk about a learning disability that I have, which I have Asperger syndrome. For those who obviously know, today is National Autism Day, and of course April is Autism Awareness Month, and I felt like it was appropriate on this day, April 2nd, to finally speak out about this video. Now, I will put in a little bit of a disclaimer that I won't be going way too personal in this. I'm not going to go into the depths of my family or anything, or anything that's involving with me outside. That's going to be more in more in my perspective. So you're not gonna I'm not gonna go much into the depths of everything like that, and I'm gonna try to make this video unedited as possible with no interruptions. But I just want to talk about my learning disability that I have, and kind of a little bit about myself. Actually, I've been wanting to do this for quite a while, as I've said, and I feel like it's the time for me to talk about this. Now, I actually have my laptop over here, kind of a little bit of what the order I'm going to be talking about on the subjects here. Yeah, because going into a video that's kind of personal, it's a bit difficult, I will admit. My name is Brian Crowell. For those who are watching this video for the first time or never even know my channel, I also was my original username used to be BryGuy2000. Now it's just Brian Crowell. Which I started renaming that, which is a new era that I began this past weekend. And I have been making videos for about past 4 years, and I'm most popular with the show Macy's Parade Balloons, one of the first ever fan-made series dedicated to the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade. I'm of course 21, and of course, as I mentioned, I have Asperger's. So I'm going to go a little bit into depth of how my life was with this disability. Now, I will say, during my early childhood days, I barely have any memories of it, because of course I was around around 1 to 4 or 5 or something like that. And that's kind of also more in the family perspective, which I won't go into this video. So I'm trying to do the best I can to explain this, but I would say probably my disability would probably begin, I would say, in the phases when I first started school. Now, if any of my friends who are actually watching this video kind of would now understand how my behavior was during the elementary days. And I'll explain more about my diagnosis. So from elementary, now I went to 2 different elementary schools. The first one I went to was through kindergarten through 3rd. And I know there's also preschool and stuff like that. So I don't know what the symptoms I had at the early stages of that, but it's kind of hard to remember things in your childhood days. But I went to kindergarten through 3rd in the first elementary school I went to, and I will say that I really kind of was, I don't know if I was legit crazy or not. I have barely any memories of it, but yeah, it's kind of difficult to remember things, especially really hard because mostly like your like any of your classmates might, but keep in mind it's just like I really have no words here. So yeah, I was of course a bit of like an average kid. You know what I mean? Like obviously, of course, like to like mess around, like just like run around, and a couple of issues that I did have. Like I did have bladder issues when I was a kid, so which I don't have that issue anymore since I've gotten older and know how to control my bladder. Uh, I felt like I think there were some things that in my elementary days from those like around like I would say between my first 2 years in kindergarten and first, that's when there were a couple of things like I always kind of like broke down. You know what I mean? Like having a like you know what I'm talking about. Like it's basically a modern definition of a mental breakdown, but as a kid, like you're just crying and there were some difficulties I had. Um, that I really had some major issues with. I know I had um, I was kind of afraid of a school mascot, a costume character, which I don't think I wouldn't have a fear with that anymore, since I am older. Uh, but there were like other things like the most infamous one, of course, is loud noises. Being so loud is probably one of the early symptoms of my autism disability. And it was like a massive problem, especially like when a lot of the time I did covered my ears, mostly. And it was just like the loudness just really kind of like, I don't know how to say anything about that. Because it is difficult for me to talk about this, but um, other things that kind of really did to me, like I would kind of like I do remember there were some times in preschool. I know I kept pounding the table. That was one thing, but um, there was also like what else? Like I usually have like massive I don't really remember much, but I know one instance in third grade I kept um my desk that I had, I usually kind of push it on the ground, um, which is kind of a symptom that I'm kind of like I'm upset or anything like that. And that's when I believe it was either near the spring of first grade or after first grade before I started second. That's when I think it was in 2000. Yeah, it was 2007 or 2008. I don't know, but that's when I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. And of course, that is a high functioning autism that I do have. And it's basically, of course, my socializing and communication is a little bit more effective than people who have regular autism, but it's kind of a bit. I really did not know it much until when I got older, because and I obviously when I was a kid I went to Geisinger. The first was like the one near Danville, and then it was like one located near Lewisburg. Um, and yeah, I will admit, my doctors. I wouldn't say my doctors are not that aggressive, like or even dentists or stuff like that. But it is like a couple of things, like of course, like typical childhood things, like they're scared of needles or like having things and like drilled something in their mouth, like when they're cleaning their teeth. But that I got used to it. But when it comes to my disability itself, there is a couple of symptoms that I kind of still have to this day, and I actually type these down that kind of still is related to me. I'm like like I have the list here that some of the symptoms that even during my high school days you might, or even in some of my videos you might have identified um, with the symptoms I have when it comes to Asperger's. Repetitive words, so it's kind of really noticeable, especially like I'm saying for a lot, and speech impediment, a bit of stuttering, pasting, which is basically I walk around when I get really really bored. Excessive toe walking, which I kind of still have that problem still to this day, but I happened like last year I did went to a foot doctor and we're trying, and of course I'm supposed to wear like this leg brace that is supposed to keep my feet straight, but I'll be honest, I keep forgetting to do that every day, and I don't know what it is. It's like because I'm tired out or I'm just lazy. I really don't know. One of the most infamous ones is I usually look at I always has my eyes down instead of straight forward, especially when you're talking to somebody, because I don't know why, because I really don't know. One element that kind of really is a symptom, I would say, because even when I was a kid, is actually picking my eyelashes. I know it is a bit not good enough to pull your eyelashes out because, of course, they're protecting all the dust and sand and particles. And I'll admit, I kind of still have an eyelash issue today, but instead of mostly, it's like the problem I have with my eyelashes now is just they're so long. Like, I don't know why I started when I was a kid, but it's just like it's so long that I have to use like a mini razor to trim it very carefully without cutting myself. It's just like it's I just don't know why. Like I know people in the comments that say don't do that, but it's just like I can't help it because that's a symptom that I have. And speaking of hair, I would say manscaping is kind of another thing, especially since I am a man. Because there's like many elements in my body that I really don't like having hairs on. Like my legs and arms are kind of fine, but it's like my hands, I would say my feet, my chest, my stomach, my back, and yes, even down there. I'm not afraid to say that I don't like hairs around those parts of the body. I know it's supposed to like protect germs and anything like that, but it's just like I think it's like the odor or something like that. I really don't know. And then another symptom that really kind of shows my autistic disability, having almost like the same foods like every week. Like instead of like everyone having like one different food like each day, it's like yeah, we all have our favorite foods, but it's like it's very difficult, which it's kind of interesting because the one food I almost have almost every day is Campbell's chicken noodle soup, which in this recording I can't eat it today because it is Good Friday, so I'm not allowed to eat that type of food because it's meat. But there was also like other things like pizzas and most infamous one, the same type of cereals, like Chef Boyardee's beefaroni, chicken rice, hot dogs. Like I almost eat those exact same foods, and like my first Geisinger doctor tried to encourage me to try to do new foods. Like yeah, none of us don't like to eat fruits and vegetables a day, unless if you are a massive person. It's just like being told what to do by somebody is just like just something I don't like when you have to try something new. But another infamous example is actually excessive pounding on certain objects. And a certain example here is this Xfinity remote. Here's the thing. It's like, I'm going to try to go up close, but you see this shape that is around here, like around the top here? My fingers here, like here's my fingers, and I almost try to like to match, like try to like almost like fit like a shape or something like that to like kind of like fits like a shape, like, you know what I mean. It's kind of like putting a puzzle in, and you just kind of have, and it kind of fits. And mostly I kind of do this, and it kind of just feels like good, but it's just like, it's definitely the most infamous symptom here, because there's like other things that kind of really shows here, that what I'm showing you here, it just, like, it's like not just like shapes like a remote or something like that, like a box, or like even like maybe, okay, maybe this corner of the table, but I'm not really sure, like um I don't know what else, but like another infamous example is mostly some of the toys that I played when I was a kid. I don't really have a lot of the toys used to, except for my Thomas trains that is up in the attic. But it's like, that's probably the most infamous example of a symptom that I have, because I don't know why. It just like, it feels like a perfect like a puzzle that just like fits there, and I really don't know how that is, because it was very interesting. And that's, of course, I really did not understand it still. And that's just when I went to my new elementary school for fourth and fifth grade, where I had two classes. Because in elementary, you only have one teacher, but I had two. One was, of course, a regular ed, which I hadn't also been throughout kindergarten to third. And the other one was a special needs classroom that I went to. And I still had some massive problems. So if you were in any of the elementary schools that I've been to, I won't say the names, but if you had me in kindergarten, first, second, third, at the school where I originally went to, or fourth and fifth, where the other elementary school I went to, you might understand, especially since I had two teachers, you might understand why. I was a little bit more of a melt shutdown person, which means I really had no help. I didn't know how to pay attention. I almost like a person that keeps looking at the clock, because I just want to go home or something like that. Because, like, yeah, of course, in real life, people don't like to be in school, but the thing is, I don't know what it was with me back then, and like, I did have like major issues. Like, I was like afraid of climbing the rock climb that was in the gym. Running was a bit of an issue to me, especially. But it was, I think it was also my crazy enthusiasm that I had. Like, it was just a bit crazy that I did. Like, I was, of course, a bit of a shy person, a little bit. Okay, maybe not in like in classrooms or stuff like that, but I mean like in front of an audience, and like that was one of the biggest fears that I had when I was a kid. It was like maybe stage fright, and I also, another infamous one. It was actually in first and second that I actually had a bit of a fear of taking my school picture. I really was a bit scared. I don't know what it was, because it went well my kindergarten year, but I still don't know why I was afraid. Was it because of the big, like you know what I'm talking about, where they have the big kind of like umbrella stage where the big lights are, yeah, the lights they have, or I also was afraid of the mascot that it would show up. Like, this was in my first elementary school I went to, but then I had no problems with it. And then, of course, there were a couple things that still typical young kids would usually have. Like, I did have braces. So, like, the braces wasn't really a major issue. Like, my teeth wasn't really much of a big issue, other than my brain itself. And I know I'm not really speaking much about my brain handling my disability a lot, but it just like shows, like, it's not just telling you that I am. I'm telling that yeah, I'm basically telling, it's like not really much about my disability, but it's also more about myself. I might have stated this at the beginning of the video, so um, so after seventh grade, no wait, fifth grade, that's when like a new era began for me. and this was at middle school for 6th and 7th grade. It actually really started up at 6 because one of the biggest changes I had, since of course we had more multiple classrooms, instead of having a regular ed math and English class, I had a little bit of a learning disabilities, like math and English class. You know what I'm talking about, like not with the special needs class, but like those with learning disabilities, abilities that are in a smaller classroom, and sometimes the special educate your learning disability English or math teacher would be an aide to like two of the regular ed classes, which was for me science and social studies. A couple of other, and that's when things I would say really kind of changed for me, especially like I was like a really big math person, I will say. Yeah, I was really big in math, like from 6 all the way up. Like it was like the one subject that really just got me the highest the most, I would say, during my entire school year, which I would say like debatably it's kind of debatable with all the other three, but it's kind of more like I barely have memories of these because of course it's basically like over like 10 years and like 10 to 9 years respectively. So it is kind of interesting. But then that's when, of course, we get into 8th grade. And, of course, this was actually at a new middle school because the thing was our school district had rebuilt one of the old schools into an all-new middle school. And, of course, the elementaries ones I went to became primaries. The one I went for 6 and 7 became intermediate. And then the new middle school was for 7th and 8th graders, and my class was the very first 8th graders of the newly elevated middle school. Now, I will admit, I think during I would say like the months of October and November, there was some sort of an issue I had. I don't know what it was because I still don't know what it was in the top of my head because I barely kind of did much of the work I did for like English and maybe social studies, maybe science, but I know for a fact it was English, and I don't know what happened there because I really don't know what happened. I don't know why I had like a mental, like, was it a shutdown or something like that? I really don't know. And a couple other things that I really had other issues, like kind of an example. There was of course a class where you have to. It was in 7th, then you have to try to type without looking down, which that was just like, it was just so frustrating to me. But my teacher said it was a bit of that class, said I could skip some of the elements that require me to do that. But the thing is about 8th grade, though, is not really because of myself, but it was actually because another era kind of change is actually the people that's around me. And this is something I'm now bringing up, is the subject of friends. Now, before I begin with the subject, I would just like to say, I know some people are going to be asking this question, and I will say this right now. I was never bullied. I know this is kind of a shock. I think it's because since I never revealed my disability, that no one has made fun of me. Like, granted, I was teased, but then because I didn't understand it was a tease thing, because it was all fun and games. So I understand it. It didn't really hurt my feelings. It's just like, I understand it. But it was not actually the classmates that I had. It was actually some of the regular ed classmates. And this is in case of some of my classmates from that class that were also part of my parish's class. Now, I am a Catholic, and during 8th grade, I was preparing for the sacrament of confirmation, and some of my classmates from the class of 2018 also go to the same parish as I do. And of course, we did have like Sunday school and stuff like that. But it was something interesting that occurred to me, and it was, I don't know what it was. Now, I think it was like when the second half of the year began. It's like one person in particular, I won't say her name, but she kind of said hi to me a couple of times, and I was like a bit of a shy person because I barely sit anybody at the table. But okay, here's the thing: I didn't really sit much by myself throughout the table. Like we did had like a sign like seventh and eighth, like elementary was completely different. But okay, like six we had assignment seats. Seven was actually kind of a bit. That's because I wasn't really connected much with it, but there was like one other person and maybe some others on the exact same table where I usually sit. Um, Eighth has been an interesting one, and it wasn't really because the thing is my schedule was a little bit different compared to most of the regular kids. So it was a bit interesting, but I don't know what it was. It's like that's when I think my personality, like without me not knowing the disability, they just really kind of gave me the attention because that I was kind of like I was getting a little bit I don't know respect, but like kind of like I don't know how to describe it, but it was very interesting. I don't know because there were a couple of moments that really did me, especially in the classes where I had like art, gym, music. Like we had a rotation, like every like I think like every marking period. No, it wasn't every marking period. It's like I think like 2 months or something. Like I really don't know, but there were a couple of classmates that I had in those classes that actually kind of really and that I had a very interesting subject. And this is the very interesting about eighth grade is kind of really changed a little bit of myself when it comes to having actual friends. And like the thing is, I think the first thing that really got me um, big with these regular ed people was actually in my history class when I did because the thing is my history said if you can name you'll get like a special credit like bonus like extra credit if you know all the US presidents, and this was during the Obama era, so this was when the United States was still a peaceful country. And it was actually through the Nickelodeon's rap and the Nickelodeon President song that it did back in 2004, and I used that as the source material, and then my history teacher let me come to his class for 3 of his history class to show them how I did it. And some of them were actually part of the confirmation thing, and I'll get back to that in a second. But then another aspect that really kind of helped, kind of really got me a little bit as, like, I don't, I hate, it's difficult pronouncing these words, but the thing is, I was kind of a singer. Now, I will admit I never joined choir because I was a bit of afraid, of course, performing in front of the audience. Um, I kind of had like this opera thing I used to do, like because the inspiration of like some of the music actually came from the Australian children's band The Wiggles, specifically Sam Moran, who of course was Greg Page's successor during the late 2000s. After when Greg had to leave due to a bad orthostyle intolerance. And his vocals really was kind of a little bit of inspiration for me to sing a bit, especially before he became a Wiggle, when he did 2 barcarolles, the Christmas barcarolle and especially the Sydney barcarolle. And it was actually his Italian song, if you know what I'm talking about. Yes, I'm going into a little bit of the Wiggles thing here, is when it was the Sailing Around the World video with Captain Featherston's crew when one of Captain's members, Alfonso, was singing Italian, and I used that. And I actually started that up in Sunday school, actually, of their hidden talents. And I really was well known for that. And I even used that, my vocals, to do a parody of the Rainbow Connection on, very ironically, on heroin. Like, I know that is really odd, but it's like not a positive thing. It's more like how bad heroin is. And I was really got the respect that I got because of how I use unique brains. And very ironically enough, one classmate that I have, who is actually now on the Ohio University football team, called me his desk butt. Because the thing is, we both sit next to each other in the computer class, but also in the health class, which that was actually near the end of the year. And then we go into the confirmation thing. Now, of course, I mentioned, of course, about the Sunday school thing, but the retreat had me very interesting because I will say that excuse me a second. I will say that the retreat was very interesting because I don't know what it was, because the thing is, I was really kind of like, obviously in the rooms, of course, there was like one hallway for the girls and one for the boys. So of course I was in the boys section, but it was like when we had that break of our retreat before we like did like a mass and stuff like that before we left. And we also of course had a lot of great times during the dinner, the night when we came, and then breakfast and lunch. And there was a really funny moment, a very funny moment, that how our pastor did this. If we put any had silverware on the table with our elbows on it as well, then we have to pound the table, and then you have to kind of walk around twice. And like, I know the last one is like, "You've been naughty." I know it's a bit off, but the thing is, these friends that I joined the journey with, I actually had a great time with. And I actually took a little bit of photo memorabilia on my Nintendo 3DS. I don't know if I have them still because I don't know where my 3DS is, but it's really was an experience that these people kind of really were calling me like as like one of them. And this was after not also the end of the 8th grade, but also after the end of the confirmation that happened this past weekend. And that's when another era became to me that something I really haven't had is like legit friends. And the only way to really get closer to your friends now is social media. And that's when I bought my first iPhone with my confirmation money. And that's when I made my Instagram that I still use to this day, and my Twitter page, and then later a Snapchat, which I don't usually reveal my Snapchat because I don't really post much of anything except for promotional material on my channel here. But that's when I really went to go and follow the close friends that really had me the respect. And that's when we began freshman year. And it was a bit of a oh man. And as soon as I talk about my freshman year, that's where you get this first edit for. So yeah, so I do apologize for that. I just want to try to make this in one take as soon as possible. But going back onto the freshman beginnings. Now, I am a bit off on the Asperger's part, but I'll get to more in that a little bit later because, like I said, I'm also talking a little bit about myself here. There were a little bit of symptoms that I did had when it came to my freshman year. I wouldn't say much of a shy person, but there were some elements that came in, like repetitive words, pasting, eyes down a lot, and yeah, that was basically it of the main symptoms. There were some times I did excessive toe walking, but the thing is, what the struggles I had in freshman year was, of course, dealing with a little bit of the course, the work, and obviously, like social studies, like U.S. history was probably the most difficult thing I would say. And probably science as well, but it was like math was still a priority. English, it's kind of like, I don't know what it was. Like my brain was kind of like, well, it could have been like because I was hitting. I don't think it wasn't because I was hitting puberty. I think it was just the symptoms of my disability that got me a little bit struggling a bit. And of course, that's when my sophomore, and then of course I still had the friends, but this is when I changed another like I was being called to something. When I was looking at my friends' social media pages, especially since Instagram was kind of like bigger, and back then I thought if you go in my older posts, I think Instagram, I thought it was almost like a YouTube thing, but I kind of I don't know why I thought of that, but well, if I did make YouTube videos back then, I don't think they would have been professional anyway. So, there were like a couple of elements that I had the difficulties throughout most of my freshman year, with some of the work elements and stuff like that, and a little bit of my craziness, I would say. And my singing thing wasn't really as big as it used to be. But if there was one element that really got me into a big school spirit was attending the sporting events, especially the football games. And it was like I never wanted to go to a sporting event because it would be cold. But like when I see the posts of my friends having a good time, I was thinking maybe I should do it. And voila, I did it. And it was a pretty unique experience. And these people really kind of encouraged me, not telling me, but show like what they're posting just really shows me that I should do it. I should go to these events. And that's when a little bit of my school spirit began a little bit. And then of course came in my sophomore year, and I wouldn't say nothing really has changed much except that I'm usually like more of a quiet around the main groups, and I was even I'm actually even was a member in the executive board at the high school. But I really didn't have much of a big thing when it came to it, and more elements that will come in about my disability a little bit later. But I was kind of fair in spirit. I like there were some elements I really did well, but it just like it was a bit difficult for me. Like interacting with other people is another element, like especially when you don't know the person, because like either a teacher or even a like another student, and even upperclassmen or even like underclassmen. And the sophomore year was kind of a bit of a interesting one, but it was like the juniors since of 2017. There were some members of that class that I didn't have a good friendship with, especially with one person in particular who is one of my all-time favorite friends. Fortunately, it's kind of difficult because I haven't spoken to her in a while, except for her birthday recently, because we've been both pretty busy. But she was one of the most important people to me during my the years in high school, because it wasn't much like at the beginning, but it was like the thing is something of an element that I actually decided to do. This was not. It was actually encouraged by my drama teacher. It was to audition for a play called Twelfth Night. And of course, this is the Shakespearean play, but it was a modernized version of it. And I was casted originally as a background character, but then after a little bit of one actor who played a character dropped out, I ended up becoming the role as Festi the Fool. I will say, I was a bit worried to perform in front of stage audiences, but it was just like, imagine if this is like a movie, and there is an element when it comes to movies that really kind of helped me also in the realms of my Asperger's here. And so I auditioned the role as Festi, and I managed to know all the lines and managed to kind of really be as a character. And I know for a fact that the audience wasn't really my main problem. It was just like, just being character, that's it. And that was a very interesting thing. And it wasn't like my drama teacher encouraged me to do this audition. I really have to thank her for that, because the director, who was actually a 12th grade English teacher, I did have a great time playing the character. And that's when, of course, another element of the friendship between me and my close friend from the class of 2017 really kind of began well. And then came in my junior year, and this is where things really got interesting. When I came to my junior year, I really had I was basically myself. I really had like my friends were still there, but we were like all in different classes and of course at different timings. I couldn't be able to join much of the executive board as I wanted last year because some scheduling conflicts. But of course, one of the biggest elements that I started that year was my vlogs on the high school football events. And even, of course, my comedy troupe Without a Q that I was in as a tech person. I was a tech person my sophomore year, and the last show I did, I started filming, and that's where I kind of began, like, my YouTube career, I would say. I wouldn't consider it a career because some people would say YouTube is not a job per se, but it's just like something I really want to do. And even though some staff members like would say that YouTube is like more of a hobby more so than an actual career itself, but I really had that passion for it, and it really was a big thing, and it really kind of really not also really got me well with, of course, with some good friends, and especially going back to their friendships again. But it's just like I just really got a little bit more bigger, I would say, for myself. Um, and then we get into the senior year, and of course, there is one element that I would like to talk about here that really kind of had where my disability really went into effect, and that was a major depression that I had. And it was actually losing an election as the school mascot. Now, I'm not going to blame anyone here. I'm not going to call any names, but I would say that I really wanted that dream to become the mascot. I didn't really thought of it in my freshman or sophomore year, but then it was like members of the class of 2017, like some were probably, like one person in particular was encouraging me to become, and even maybe some from 2019, that were like the now juniors were encouraging me to almost like to become the Mr. Millionaire for the class for the Mr. Millionaire is the mascot name, but like that's the name I would say, the mascot for our school, and for the class of 2018. And I did sign up, and I thought when you sign up, I thought that you were going to go and also have an interview with the advisor of who's in charge of it and almost having like an audition or something and ask questions. But no, they just automatically do the voting. And there was one thing that really kind of struggled with me a little bit is that because you have three candidates. You have myself, there was one other, but then you have one that is actually a twofer. And because I don't know if that like is qualified. Like, yeah, last year there was the previous year was a history with the first female mascot, but it's like having two of them, and they were both sports athletes, and I'm not mad at any of them, but it was just like I had that dream, and I really ended up in a major depression, and I was a bit aggressive on the football game and the stadiums because I just really thought that I could have been the one. And I really felt a bit upset. I just was really angry that it was like went to a popularity vote. Now I would mention like why didn't you review like what is it because of your Asperger's and stuff like that that you didn't win at no. I will admit now that I did one fair and square. And there is a reason why I will say that because if I won this based on my disability, I would say that's not a good way to vote, and I'll explain a little bit why. But having that loss was a big deal with me. And very interesting enough, the day after the game, my pastor did a homily, and very ironically, the homily went so similar to the events I did the night before, and I was like, man, he really got me, and I was like, well, that's a lesson learned, and it also kind of happened like, I don't know, I was still like majorly depressed a little bit on the Monday, which I also wasn't feeling well on that day, and I was like, I was still kind of trying to get used to it, but then I calmed myself down, I lost fair and square, because not all the time you always get the opportunity to win, and I will admit, I lost fair and square. I think they both deserve the win. Um, and I did apologize to them of my actions that I did. But very ironically, the one of them asked me to fill in for him because of him getting his wisdom teeth removed, since the other one was actually also on the football team. And I had a great time doing the opportunity to do that. And it was just like, it was a one off thing. And I really had a great time on it. It just, like, there was actually a video where I did a costume contest since it was the week before Halloween. I think it was the weekend of Halloween, and that's when we did that costume contest thing. There was actually a video that you can see me as the mascot just for that game. And I personally thank him for making me fill in for him as a substitute, but it's just like, well, it's his job, not mine, as now thinking about it. It's like, I probably wouldn't have not accepted it, but I do appreciate his cooperation. But now we are going back into the subject of autism, my disability itself. A lot of them was most about my life, but now there's a couple of struggles that I still have to this day that is a bit of an issue, except for one. One of them is, of course, dealing with friendships, and mostly is to keep in touch. And this was actually my second Geisinger doctor that I only had a short bid for my last years, because after I turned 21, I was done with that program. So yeah, I don't go there anymore. But one of the elements that she brought up was to keep in touch with your high school friends, and I managed to have a couple of contacts with that. Especially, I forgot to mention this element back in my high school. I did, of course, a couple of things, of course, not just also with the trip, but I was also part of the morning announcements crew. And one of the biggest opportunities I ended up getting in my senior career was actually being part of the commencement committee. Yeah, I actually was one of the 20 students to be elected in the commencement committee by the staff. And I ended up getting in one of the front row seats at commencement. So that was like one of the biggest opportunities I have ever gotten, along with some of the others as well. But back onto like the struggles that we're still in today, and keeping touch with your close high school friends really is difficult now, because they would prefer a lot now. I think that I saw, like, I did a poll on this on Instagram from somebody, and majority of the people say they would prefer keeping in touch with their college friends more so than their high school friends. And it is a bit understandable why, because of course with them being more in the outside field, outside of their original hometown, and just like meeting with other people that are not from the area, and it's just like they would be, since they're in the same veins of where the career you want to go to, you would prefer them over the high school ones. And also another element that really, in general, that happened throughout most of my life, I was never invited to parties. Now, granted, I would say probably because maybe like a bit of the like some allergies that I do have, or even like the driving things, especially during high school, because I don't think my parents would not allow me to have any of my friends who were student drivers to be driving when I'm the passenger. I think the only time that ever was an exception was just my cousins, and that's it. When it comes to like not being invited to parties, it's just like kind of is a bit of a shame, because I'm usually like, I would say I'm usually the forgetful one. Even though I am usually around a lot, but it's just like, I'm not really the highest priority. I'm usually like in the very, very bottom. Does that mean they hate me? Not really. It's just that I'm usually forgetful, and especially, of course, in moments that really kind of make sense. Now, I wouldn't say not during this time, of course, but and especially if I was in college and if I did went to parties, I would probably not, because I would be under the age of 20. I do not want to do like alcohol, sex, or drugs under the age of 21, and not even during this pandemic. And another issue that kind of also is a bit of struggle, not just with me, but also any other forms of the autism, is relationships, especially like it's a bit difficult, because I do want to fall in love, but it's just like, I will admit there are some fellow classmates that I went to high school, even from not just from my class, but even probably some of the that were from 2017 that I did had crushes on. But it's either they are taken, or I think another element that I think just depending on how long the relationship, the religious beliefs for some unknown reason. I don't know why, but it's just like if they're not Catholic, like I don't know why. It almost feels like it's from my parents. If they're not Catholic, don't date them. It's like, okay, I don't think that's not what they were saying. It's just like it feels like it kind of does. Like from my perspective, it's just like I don't know why, but that would be more like for like marriage or something like that. And yes, people, I did went single to prom, both my junior and senior, and even both the three winter formals I went. I didn't went to my freshman year because I just didn't really feel like it, and then like I regret not going there. And then the sophomore year, I went I went single to that as well as the junior and senior year as well. But never ever dating a girl. Now, I would think like dating a girl here will like I would love to fall in love somehow, but it just like they might not fall in love with me because of my disability. And this could also be concerning about their parents as well, if they think it's safe or not. And like it is kind of a sad, and that's why even throughout most of the last year of my life, well, the past few years of my life, I meant that I usually would have a blue Valentine, and it's kind of a sad thing as well. And I would almost like listen to like Brian Wilson's music, like Love and Mercy or One Kind of Love from that movie Love and Mercy that you would usually listen to because it's kind of sad, but it's something you really want. And speaking of an element that I have to admit, I never went to college. And I think it was because of my disability that I decided not to go to college. Because I don't know how the government deals with it. I don't know how the colleges themselves deal with it, except people on the disability spectrum. And like it's difficult. Now I will admit, back in my junior year, there was like a special college program for those with learning disabilities, and through the help of OVR, they got me in there, and the first week was a pretty unique experience, I would say. Like the first day, like it was like a class like on the Thursday, like for the next few weeks in the afternoon, and the first day was actually pretty unique how it looked. But then that's when the class began, and that's when I felt like, oh. Because the one element that really kind of probably told me not to do it is because you have to write and write and write and write and write. And with the amount of homework that you have to do, like it is struggling. And I've seen this in many other posts on social media that, yeah, college is not that easy. But it's just like that, the cost of it, what the government wants, and like I even try to research like what colleges really like it's best for the people on the autism spectrum, and it's like the closest one I think was like in Florida or something like that. I really don't know, but I think it was I regret not deciding to go to college, but it might have been a positive thing, I would say. Not because, well, maybe like a positive thing not doing it because this is not a positive thing, but like because of how complicated the pandemic is, I think it could have been a smart move for myself to be safe than sorry. But it is a bit of a difficulty. But then you get the one element that really kind of develops with me the most when it comes to the disability: driving. Now, of course, I have been the passenger for like a few times and stuff like that, and then of course I was in the front seat. But driving was everyone's biggest fear, especially with the amount of car crashes that you would usually see on the news, or even with drunk driving or stuff like that. And it was actually on my junior year when they did this. When no, it was my sophomore year actually. That they did this. Like drunk driving video to explain, like to inform people, like since it was like a prom year. No, I think it was the junior. Yeah, it was the sophomore year. Yeah, it was the sophomore year that drunk driving is not good. And um, it was probably the most difficult thing, biggest fear what everybody has is on the road. And I did ended up getting my permit back in 20. It took me, I think, until the summer of 2017 when I got it after a year after I turned 16. And I have not driven since. It wasn't until 2018 I started having a special student driver, a student, a driving teacher to kind of get me used to the driving thing. It took several months, and and very ironically, since today is Good Friday, it was actually on this Good Friday back in 2019 I did got my license, and it was a bit of an opportunity because it took me I would say 3 years after I turned 16 to get a driver's license. Um, there is sometimes I still have to use any of my parents' vehicles or stuff like that. I don't have my own vehicle at this moment as of this recording, but don't maybe in the future I will get it soon, but I don't know when. But yeah, driving was a big scare for me. Not just of course with drunk driving, but also with the police and also with the speed limits. And also the traffic lights are not the big thing, but also how people are just impatient if they're right behind you, especially when you're just going the speed limit on a highway, which that's still an issue that I still have today because people are just idiots when they're just so impatient when they're not real following the rules on the road. But it just really kind of shows that that I can do it. I did manage to drive, and I do it really well. But then we go into an element that really kind of want to bring up in this video is actually the stereotypes of autism, especially in the workforce. Now, I'm not going to reveal much more about personal lives in the workforce because it's more of a positive thing, but it's just I'm not going to reveal much within my channel because that's just something that's just me. So I won't go into that in this video, but or in any of the videos because that's something I'm just gonna keep personally. But it is a positive thing, I will say that. But just when it comes to trying to find a job was pretty difficult, I would say. And probably what my parents almost think is the most thing that I would do is stack shelves in grocery stores. And I think this is gonna be odd to say this, but I think autism people be stacking people people on the autism spectrum like myself that would stack shelves in grocery stores is the most stereotypical thing when it comes to the autism spectrum. I know that's a bad thing to say, but it is true. Really think about it. Most of the jobs, it is understandable why, but it's people with different forms of autism like myself just doesn't feel like doing that. And that's when, of course, when not where also my real life job is, but also with here on YouTube, it's something I want to do outside of those typical things, also other stereotypical things to do, like just cleaning and stuff like that. Even though, like being a janitor or something like that, it's just like a bit on yeah, of course, in my real life there are some elements that kind of connected, but that's because, well, yeah, I get used to it because it's just, well, a thing for me because it's not really a high priority. It's just it's not really my main thing, but it's something I usually kind of do, and I don't have a problem with that. It's just like when you watch something in pulp culture that just shows an autism people being stereotyped, although I've yet to watch the movie Music, but it's just stereotypes is just not okay, I would say. Just try to give yeah, people opportunities that wants to do something. Yeah, it would be difficult without a college thing. And I even before I had a job, I even had difficulties with job interviews. because I did not know what to say. I usually had my eyes down. I didn't do any research because, based on some of the job things they assigned me to go interview, it's just something I do not like to do, to work at, because it's just like that's not a place I want to work at. Like working like for like the Salvation Army, for an example, which I'm not bashing you, but it's like I got an interview that, and I just like I didn't feel like working there. Like there were other elements I didn't like to work at, like a store like Wegmans or Wise's or stuff like that. And where my current job is, I actually have a great time doing it. Um, Definitely a little bit different. There are still some elements, but everything's always positive. Granted, I will say there are some elements that I will admit that I had to get used to problems with, but I had to get used to it. But now, as I've been working there since over 2.5 years, I think. Well, I know over 2 years, I'm having a great time with that. I won't say where I work at because, of course, that's a personal thing. But what else of my autism spectrum that really kind of helps me a bit is the realms of pop culture, especially in the fields of television and movies. When it comes to television, there are some elements that really had an interest in it, especially in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade as a big infamous example. Um, but then you also have shows that really had interesting, like when I was a kid, I was a big massive game show watcher, like the days of like uh, Press Your Luck slash Whammy, The Price is Right, Let's Make a Deal, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, all those stuff. Family Feud. And very ironically, in our senior yearbook, I was voted the most likely to host Saturday Night Live. I would say more likely a game show. But when it comes to like other film realms, the movie industry was something that really changed my life a lot, especially when I got older. The award season really kind of got me into it, and once I was old enough to watch at least like R-rated and even NC-17 films, um, yeah. Although it might be uncomfortable for me, but honestly, I'm not really that uncomfortable with that. I'm very comfortable watching those types of films. Okay, not like online adult stuff. I mean more like actual featured films, NC-17 films like The Wolf of Wall Street, for an example. Um, and of course, you would think like autism people, oh, they would just watch animation and that's it. Which, yeah, I know that I do animated reviews, but also I do documentary and non-English language international movies here on this channel, people. Um, it is because the thing is, it's just like subjects that really had me interested the most, and even like the award season just really got me into big interest of a subject in the realms of movies. And then you get television. And of course, there are some shows that really had the most infamous to me. The Wiggles was probably the biggest one. But the one that I think was the biggest one to me was Thomas and Friends. Of course, now the show's been hated because of the recent reboot and like with the how it's now turning into like a baby show that people are saying, but I don't really care about that. But like the original era, it really had me like connected with me with all the personalities of the characters. And I actually did like a few years back. I did a quiz like what engine matches your personality, and I ended up getting the number one engine himself. Um, Thomas kind of really feels like I'm like him. Like no, I'm like Thomas. If you really think about it. Okay, maybe like not like the number one thing, like the greatest thing ever, like not like Kanye West territory, I'm saying. It's just like how your personality is. Like you can be a little bit cheeky, which I could be sometimes. And it's just like I just like to have fun and just be like a happy person, but do learn lessons a lot as well. Other ones, of course, that really didn't had mentioned, like, and of course, obviously with Thomas, I had, if you've seen, I had done a home media collection. I have all the merchandising up in the attic. Yeah, because I am pitiful. I know that's kind of a sad place, but the other shows that kind of really did want to me, like, even though as a Catholic person, I did watch Veggie Tales, so that's no brainer right there. But there was also like Fairly Odd Parents, the classic SpongeBob SquarePants. I was more of like a PBS Kids person, like with like Bob the Builder. I did watch a couple times Sesame Street, like Dragon Tales, Fetch with Rough Rough Men, Zaboomafoo, and all that stuff. Um, there were some like Disney Channel shows like Phineas and Ferb and Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and Nickelodeon with like iCarly and all those. But then like when it comes to recent television, very ironically, the news is probably the one thing I watch because I don't know what it is, but it's just like, yeah, of course, it is a bit of like you're doing it just for a daily thing. So I don't know why, but it just keeps me updated. But like when it comes to shows or any films or pop culture, when it comes to the autism spectrum, the one show that kind of really hits me the most is actually The Good Doctor. And very ironically, you would think the character that I would admire is Dr. Sean Murphy. Surprisingly, it's not. It's actually the characters that are around him. Whether it be, like, of course, Dr. Glassman or um, Dr. Lim or Dr. Brown or um, Dr. Kim or even Dr. Resnick, my favorite character. Morgan Resnick's my favorite character of the show. Or any others, or even his girlfriend Leah. It's like, yeah, there are some elements I would say that are not really portrayed, I would say, in real life, but there are some moments that really did hit me personally. Because of fears like if you could like get fired or something like that, or fears like of pregnancy, or even like fears of like getting yelled at or stuff like that. That's still like it's just like something that just kind of makes me scared a bit. Like not like in my real life job, but like what else? Like if like any other forms of jobs that I did had, like you would expect something like that, and that kind of does scare you. And it kind of does still to this day that some elements just really hit me personally. Um, like it's not like the best interpretation of autism because it really doesn't have much of a connection, but it really kind of tells me something. But then there is one element that I would like to bring this up. And if you are, just want to ask this audience a question. If you are subscribing to my channel just because of this video, are you doing it just because you want to appreciate me for this video? Because the thing is, or you're subscribing because you're a fan of, you're enjoying the content. Because here's the thing. The one word I do not like when it comes to when people subscribe is for sympathy. I am not asking for subscribers. I am not asking for support. I'm not asking any autism like any forms of autistic community for making me join them just because of my disability. I'm not asking all of that for sympathy. Because sympathy is not something I don't want just because of my disability. It's more specifically that I'm encouraging, if you want to subscribe, watch any of my content. Not like if you like watch any of my other content on my channel, and if you like them, you can subscribe to that. It's just I'm not encouraging people to subscribe just for this video. Watch any of the other contents you have seen, like my Macy's Parade balloons, the Oscar reviews, and even the high school vlogs I did. Like, I'm asking. I don't want any subs just for this video. And I know there will be some, like, trolls and some, like, hatred YouTube channels that are going to say, oh, he's doing this just so he can get subscribers. Well, no. I'm not asking for subs for this video. I am just telling you that this is my disability, and I just want to tell this story because I just want people to get to know a little bit more of the real me. And that's why I decided to make this video on National Autism Day. I know, like, I went a little bit off a lot with the autism things in some parts because I went more throughout my life, but it is kind of an important aspect as well of how your disability is kind of part of that. But it's like, that's the thing, because I don't want my disability to be the main aspect of myself. I just want myself as the person, not as a highly functioning autistic person. And of course, I would usually see a lot of things physically instead of hearing things. But like, it's just, I've been wanting to tell this story for quite a while. And I think it's like the perfect timing, especially since it is National Autism Day. Now, of course, you do have the right to subscribe just because you really felt connected with this video. But it's just like, I'm sorry, but I have no words. I'm kind of lost here. I think, yeah, because it is kind of a little bit difficult to speaking out in this video, and I was a bit scared when I was going to make this video, but I just want to tell my story. All I just want to do is to let the people know of this, and like, it's like, it could be like a big impact to me, but it's just like, do I want an impact just because of my disability? Do I really want this just for as an autistic person? I just want to be a normal, like, it is like my Asperger's is in my brain. It's just that as a person myself, I just want to be who I am, not as a person with a learning disability. It is in me, but it's just like, I don't want. And I think that kind of basically ends my story. I went a little bit throughout my life, a little bit. Of course, I didn't want to go personally here, but I just want to let people know who I am, what's my disability, and I just thank you guys for watching this long video. I know it's a bit of a difficult journey, but I just want to show you how personal it is to make a video like this. And I just thank you very much. And I think that's all I gotta say. So, my name is Brian Crowd. I have Asperger syndrome. And I thank you guys for watching this video.